Thanks for introducing the panelists, and what a fine panel it is, and a nice topic. Pipelines. You know, one of the things that is really outstanding about India's oil and gas industry is the huge network of oil and gas pipelines, product pipelines, whether that's trunk pipelines or the main line. It's a huge network that all of us can be proud of, and there's a lot of planning and a lot of hard work has gone into creation of that. The other important thing is that the country is going for a very massive expansion of that pipeline network for a variety of reasons, and that's actually the lifeline of. So when we're talking about expansion of pipelines, we're talking about the expansion of the lifeline of the industry. In many ways, it's very, very crucial. It's linked to economic development. It's linked to our social and economic progress, right? The way that network touches the lives of the common man, the industries across states, it's absolutely phenomenal. And therefore, and that's the beauty of this topic. And what would be a better panel than this, where we have speakers across GAIL and BPCL and IOC, and Mr. Soumitra here from the Center for High Technology. Let me begin this discussion by trying to understand Mr. Soumitra, just from the point of view of context setting. How do you look at the larger oil and gas pipeline infrastructure space in India? Very broadly speaking, what is the first thought that comes to your mind about it as somebody who is a very senior and experienced person in the space? Yeah.
See, pipelines is currently it's ever expanding. When I joined this industry long back in 1985, we were having only around 4,000 kilometers of pipeline. Out of that, 3,000 was with IOCL, 1,000 odd kilometers with Oil India, and nobody else were there. But then the journey began from then, and today it's a huge network. I think close to 50,000 kilometers of pipelines we have. We have a large network of gas pipelines, oil, petroleum product, crude, LPG pipeline. I can see Mr. Singh sitting here. He's building a world's longest LPG pipeline. So the industry is expanding, and another 25,000 kilometers is under construction. Having said that, we have a long way to cover also. Like in USA, we have around 4 lakh kilometers of pipeline, little more than that. And we are now, as I said, it's close to 50,000 operating pipeline. So we have to go a long way. There's a lot of expansion, and interestingly, a lot of pipelines are getting service change. Previously, they were operated in crude oil transportation. Now these are being changed to petroleum product transportation. Maybe in the near future, some gas lines are converted to hydrogen transportation. So a lot of technical challenges are there. Pipelines are being built offshore as well. Yesterday only I have seen, I think in Economic Times itself, someone has put an advertisement that Oman, India, which was long dead, long underwater, is again resurfacing. People are working Oman, India gas pipeline. So overall, it's a growing industry, and we need a lot of pipelines. We need significant amount of pipelines. That's what I can say.
Mr. Gupta, one of the you mentioned offshore pipelines, and if I'd be thankful if you can throw some light on on a topic like offshore pipelines, right? One of the issues there is maintenance, right? Now that's a very a niche and very specific, specialized kind of an area. As somebody who understands that space, how do you can you educate us on what are some of the basic things to keep in mind when it comes to maintaining offshore pipelines? And that I'm asking specifically because there's a lot of focus there, and a lot of growth is set to happen in that space in the coming years.
Sure. Offshore pipeline is a little different from the onshore ones, both in terms of design, operation, and maintenance as well. for designing offshore pipeline, it's strain-based design. It's not an kind of for the onshore pipelines the way we design is stress-based. So it's quite different in the sense that when you lay the pipeline, because you lay it from the ship, and so it forms a J type of formation, where during the laying there's every possibility of the pipe getting buckled. So that's the difference starts from that point of view. So you take a very heavy wall pipe. If you take a heavy wall pipe, and then you actually put it on the sea floor, so there's a chance of the pipeline getting floated because of buoyancy. So you have to put concrete coating on the pipeline, like a land onshore pipeline. We have coating. Over and above that, you have to put thick concrete coating to keep the weight more so that it doesn't float. So this kind of challenges, construction challenges are too many. And then in operation maintenance, you have like a lot of pipelines are crude unloading pipelines. Offshore pipelines, mostly in India, are crude unloading pipelines. These are not continuously operated. When the ship comes, it unloads, and then maybe after 3 days, ship is again coming. So for the 3 days or 4 days or 5 days, as the ships come, the pipeline lay idle. Now that is very dangerous, because when the pipeline is idle, there's every possibility of water getting separated from the crude, or some people flush the line with water. They push out all the crude from the pipeline and keep it water filled for 3-4 days, or maybe around 7-8 days. So there's a possibility of corrosion therein. And you cannot go to an offshore pipeline to measure corrosion, because it's below the sea. So these are all challenges. And inspection is also a very different challenge to find out whether the lines are corroded or not. You cannot launch an instrument unless you make a loop of the pipeline, which is very expensive. IOCL, as my Mistral company, it has made pipelines, offshore pipelines, all with loops. But many companies, in India, they don't have loops, so they cannot inspect. It's become very difficult for them. So that makes it more vulnerable. And then another aspect is, even if you know that there's a problem in the pipeline, a defect in the pipeline, identifying the location and repairing it is a hell of a job. But then India has gradually developed expertise. A lot of expert companies are there. And we get support from abroad as well. So offshore pipelines is a different ballgame, I can say.
So basically, if I were to ask you to sum that up, do you think in India we have the right regulatory policy kind of framework and also the technical know-how that is required to understand and implement some of these nitty-gritties that you have talked about? How do we as a country fare on some of these parameters?
I think if you say regulatory thing, the government has been very supportive. Now the current government has been supporting all the industries, and especially offshore pipelines, because recently we have replaced, around a year back, we have replaced a significant portion of offshore pipeline and in Gujarat coast, and the government of India and government of Gujarat extended all regulatory support. In fact, they came forward and assisted us in overcoming a lot of difficulties. Like, you see, there's a very strange kind of thing. And some of the offshore areas, you have corals. And those are very eco-sensitive, and you have to replace those corals. Translocation, they call it. Remove the live corals from that location. You keep them somewhere else. And after your construction is complete, bring them back again. So these are all very typical. And the government of Gujarat has been very kind to us. They have permitted all sorts of clearances very quickly. Government clearance is not an issue. As far as regulations are concerned, as an engineer or as an operator of pipeline, I will like to see less regulations. And fortunately, not much regulation is there in offshore in India. Maybe in offshore exploration there is something, I don't know. I'm not an exploration man. But for offshore pipeline, not too many regulations. When you construct a pipeline and you commission it, just YSD guys go there and they see whether all the YSD provisions are fulfilled or not, and they give you a clearance. But then I'm not, it's not to be taken very lightly. It's a serious issue. Because offshore construction is done extremely seriously. You know, all the, I think, inspection requirement or designing requirements or material requirements are much, I think you can say 5x into the onshore pipelines. So the chances of those lines are very safe. We are operating offshore pipelines for 50 years now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tripathi, you're from IOC, one of the largest, oil companies in this part of the world, and with a huge network of oil and gas pipelines. Would you also like to see less of regulation, like he was saying? To what extent that's, on a lighter note, to what extent that's, that's something that, can be an enabler for project implementation or expansion, etc.
Good morning, and I welcome all the delegates over here, and I thanks the ET team who has organized a very nice conference over here about oil and gas. And as my fellow panelist has said, that regulation is also one of the important I should not say a restriction, but one of the important challenges which need to be looked into while laying the pipeline for natural gas also. And moreover, if we see the implementation of the pipeline laying as far as natural gas is concerned, the regulatory board, they have framed the regulations initially primarily for the natural gas only, but now slowly it is getting implemented for the other pipelines also. The basic intent of regulation is that it should have some structured thing, and since the laying of the pipeline is passing through many of the public areas or public utility related assets, so it should have certain guidelines which need to be followed. But sometimes I feel that these are some of the points or some of the issues, they are sometimes restrict the further expansion also. That is my point of view on regulation part.
Yeah, thank you. My apologies, I referred to IOC there. I meant GAIL. Can you broadly take us through, what the overall business of pipelines, of oil and gas pipelines for GAIL, just so that we can, as laymen, understand what is the size of the business, which are the different, areas we are present in, and which are the areas of opportunities for growth that exist?
For this point, I would like to go back to the initial days of GAIL when it was formed. You know that the discovery of Bombay High or South Basin was one of the very important discovery for India as far as oil and gas field is concerned. But the infrastructure for transporting the natural gas was not there, not adequate at that time. So ONGC has started a pipeline project in their own company, and later on then government decided that since it is going to be the future of India, future energy supplier to the India, so why not it should have a separate company. So in 1984, in 1984 August, Government of India formed another company as Gas Authority of India Limited at that time. And the first project of that Gas Authority of India Limited was that HBJ pipeline. Because if you go back to those days, the use of natural gas was localized only, and it was getting used to those locations where it is getting discovered only. So mainly if you find, like whether it was in Assam or in some part of Tamil Nadu or in Gujarat, they were getting used over there. But after this HBJ pipeline system, it it has opened the industrialization into the northern part of India also. And if you see, there were many six fertilizer plants, then many power plants, then many more industries has come. And later on, the need of natural gas has increased so well that we need to put up a LNG terminal in Dahej by the PLL, which is a JV of many OMCs, and many pipeline has been put up to meet the gas requirement of at that time. And as far as the present situation is concerned, we are already constructing around 18,000 crore of pipeline. With the major one is the Jagdishpur Haldia pipeline, which is on the verge of completion, and around 98% pipeline has already been completed, and majority of the part of pipeline is under operation. Then second, the major one which we are constructing at this stage is Mumbai, Nagpur, Jasugada. Basically, it will be connecting the economic capital of Mumbai with the Jasugada in Odisha. Then further through Nagpur, it will be getting connected to Jabalpur, and from Jabalpur, it can be connected to the western part of India and Rajasthan also at a later stage. Then another pipeline we are already on the verge of completion. That is Srikakulam Angul pipeline. Angul like it will be taking gas from Angul and transporting it to the Srikakulam in Andhra Pradesh, which is also on the verge of completion. And then apart from this, we are connecting the PLL Petronet LNG terminal of Kochi to the main network via Kochi-Kutnad pipeline, which is also like if we see that it was around 900 kilometer, and already 600 kilometer has been completed, and remaining, as far as remaining 300 kilometer is concerned, we are completed already around 50% of that pipeline, and remaining is under construction. So by connecting all the sources, whether it is the domestic source or the import gas terminals, they will be getting connected to the national gas grid. And if somebody is interested that he or like that company is interested to bring the gas from outside and send it to the consumption center, then in coming 2 to 3 years, they will be able to send it to any place. And as far as future of the pipeline is concerned, this is going to be a game changer, at least for those sections where thinking about the natural gas as a fuel was a dream. If you see in the northeast part also, IGGL, Indradhanush Gas Grid Limited, they are also constructing around 1600 kilometer of pipeline, and they are connecting all the 7 states of northeastern, and that is also on the verge of completion, and they will be getting gas supply from the local source of the northeast region, as well as if they are in excess of the gas, then it can be supplied to the JHBDPL and it can be transported to the any location. So we are we are well placed as far as pipeline is concerned in India, and the availability of the cleaner fuel will be available to each nook and corner of the India in very soon. And I would like to add one more thing, like thinking about natural gas from Kutch to Kohima and Kashmir to Kanyakumari is going to be a true thing very soon.
Okay. So two things that I want to ask you very quickly based on the great comment that you have made. First, what is this broad expansion that you're talking about? What is the kind of investment requirement that will be there for that? And what is the time period we are looking at for what is the larger target, for example, that we are chasing there? And secondly, when we talk to a lot of the people in the pipeline industry, they say that it's very difficult to deal with state level, at the state level, at the local level, very difficult to deal with officials, and that there's a mesh of regulations, rules, guidelines, different things, across different states, from one state to another, and it's difficult to operate. How do you look at it? Do you agree? What are the issues and how to deal with them?
This is a very good question, and you rightly said that laying of a pipeline is not a very simple thing, because the first restriction which comes from the standard and code practices which need to be complied while laying the pipeline. That is the initial restrictions which control the whole thing. Then comes to the geography where you have to lay the pipeline, because it will not if you consider southern part of India, it is mostly rocky terrain. So laying a pipeline in rocky terrain is a really a difficult task. And then you have to, while laying the pipeline, you have to pass through the many ecological sensitive areas also, like forest, wildlife, and all those places. Then at some location it may come that public may not be interested that this pipeline should pass through their own field, because of the misconceptions also. Because somebody, if start saying that no, by putting the pipeline in their field is going to affect the yield of the crop. I have come across some of the discussions of this sort of also, like if pipeline is laid, then the yield of the crop will not be there in the field. So we try to mitigate all those things through public awareness. And as far as the permissions are required, like whether it is ecological sensitive area or crossing of rivers or highways or any other similar sort of thing, forest also, we try to pursue with them, and we come with the solutions for them also. Like in this way, the methodology or the SOP which we are going to implement is not going to affect their basic need or basic requirement. So in that way, by rigorous pursuing, we get permissions. And recently I would like to add one more thing. In some cases it has been said that you should lay your pipeline along the road, basic or along the highway. But we had several rounds of discussion with the highways authorities and Ministry of Road and Transport also. Basically the issue is highways acquiring or road authorities are acquiring the land for their own purpose, and very limited space is available which can be offered to the other entities. So what is happening in those available right of way, oil pipeline operators are also interested to lay their own pipeline. GAIL is also interested to lay their own pipeline in that ROU only. Then electricity authorities are also interested that their cable should pass through those areas. Then similarly for water authorities also, they also want the same, their infrastructure should be laid along in that ROU only. So they are also, like their concern is also very much genuine. But for a longer visibility or for longer goal, we should look into providing an infrastructure corridor by taking the consent of all those operators who are using highways or fields for laying their infrastructure from one state or one city to another city. So we are coming up, like this need to be looked into for better infrastructure development, because at this stage itself, if we are although we are laying a pipeline of around 1,000 kilometers per year, but it may not, this space may not be there in the coming days if the permissions are not made in such a way that it should suit to the pipeline operators or infrastructure developers also.
Okay, thank you. Let me turn to Mr. Gopinath now. To begin with, first of all, sir, please take us through your, the overall profile of gas pipeline business for BPCL. In terms of size and major projects, and why is it important, and what is the kind of significance it has in the larger, growth function of BPCL.
Good morning. At the outset, many thanks to ET World for inviting me over here, and I'm for giving my perspective on this. I think the day started with a lot of optimism from Mr. Surana and Mr. Rajinder Singh that my business is going to be here for some time. I think I will be in the business of transferring petroleum and petroleum products through, I think, at least till next 20 years. So that was a good optimism to have in the morning. And mera dhanda rahega abhi aur thode din. That was a good sign to start with. So
No,
having said
what
that,
he was saying was, I think Mr. Surana was referring to that debate about which used to happen around 2 years back, whether it's going to be EVs or whether it's going to be petrol, right? All of that. But we are increasingly seeing less and less of the discussion now, right? And I think that's what he was referring to.
Right. So to give you a perspective in terms of petroleum and petroleum product pipelines, because gas Mr. Tripathi has adequately covered. If you see across the industry, IOC, BPC, HPC, we have around 23,618 kilometers of petroleum and petroleum product pipelines. And BPCL has a very minuscule share of 10%, close to 2,572 kilometers. We started a bit late in terms of laying of pipelines, but yes, we have one of the longest pipeline of petroleum product line from Mumbai to Bijwasan, from the commercial capital to the capital of political capital of India, and that's a Mumbai Manmad Bijwasan pipeline, which was started in 1998, and if you see the crude pipelines, we have a length of close to, in the country, around 10,943 kilometers of crude pipelines. BPCL has, our refineries are mostly along the coast, so the crude pipelines are less. We have only one pipeline which is catering to our Bina refinery. We have a 947 kilometer odd pipeline, which is Wadinar Bina pipeline. And natural gas, we have now come into that business. 2 trunk pipelines we have done of, one is of Aurangabad Ahmednagar pipeline and one Satara Sanganair pipeline that is close to 400 odd kilometers. So if you see the design capacity of these pipelines across the country, what petroleum and product, if you see the MSHSD and SKO, those white oil product pipelines, we have a design capacity of close to 120 million metric tons. And of this, BPCL has a capacity of close to 22 million metric tons. And we basically, the 4 major states which we run through our pipelines is Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan. Madhya Pradesh, roughly we have a 900 kilometers of pipelines. Rajasthan, we have close to 766. Gujarat, we have around 500. Maharashtra, we have around 480. But all the 3 refineries of ours, be it Mumbai refinery, the Kochi refinery and Bina refinery, we have pipelines emanating from them. So, as I was telling, and in LPG pipeline, if you see, there is around a length of around 3,191 kilometers of LPG pipelines in the country now, and the longest pipeline of Kandla Gorakhpur is in progress, which is by the industry, by both, by the 3 oil companies, IOC, BPC and HPC. So over the years, in terms of capability, in terms of the infra and the operational excellence, we can say that BPCL as a company, we have come a long way. We have started late, but we have come a long way. We are handling, in fact, all kinds of white oil products, be it HSD, MS, ATF, kerosene, crude, LPG, lube oil. MTO we have started now to transfer. Then we have low sulfur, low aromatic kerosene. I think these are some of the products which we handle. And in terms of challenges, we have one of the longest ATF pipeline in terms of quality maintenance. I think that is one of the longest pipelines in the country, which we are managing almost 700 kilometers of pipeline. And these pipelines were very critical when the BS4 to BS6 happened, and a conversion happened sometimes. So these pipelines played a big role in, we were the pioneers in getting this conversion, and this Mumbai Bijwasan pipeline had a big role to play. In terms of, though we have, the length of the pipeline is very small in terms of utilization, BPCL is almost utilizing 85% of the capacity of the pipelines. But overall, if you see across the country, a broad yardstick, if you say, the nozzle sales to conversion to the pipeline, the quantity which is transported through the pipelines, our country as on date is around 60%. So which is very low in terms of, if you compare it with the world. Whereas BPCL, because we are low in numbers, our number is now 50%, wherein 50% of our nozzle sales we are transporting through the pipelines. And in terms of benchmarking it with the worldwide, I think this perspective I think I should give. We have the Solomon benchmarking for petroleum and petroleum product pipelines, where 206 odd pipelines are benchmarked across the world. And as BPCL, we are one of the rated in the top quartile in many of the parameters. If you see, like utilization, the manageable non-volume expenditure, in most of the parameters, I think we are there. So we are in at par with most of the pipelines which operate worldwide. And in terms of certifications, as a BPCL, we are one of the first to implement the pipeline integrity management system, which is, integrity is one of the biggest challenges which we have now of having grown, the pipelines getting old. And all our operational locations are certified with the latest ISO and the environmental standards. And they're also waste to landfill, I think zero waste to landfill locations. So as I was telling, the three key things which we need to concentrate is on the integrity, sustainability, and the reliability of the pipelines. So as my most of the 99% of my assets are out of sight. So it becomes very important that we have. So in terms of technology, we are going for the latest pipeline integrity management system software. We have the intelligent pigging, which we are doing, which ensures that the pipeline is in good health always. And for the sustainability part of it, as pipeline is the most environmental friendly mode of transportation. Also in terms of the other factor which contributes to this carbon footprint is the hours which we drive through the pumps, because we pump the oil. So we have done considerable improvement in the way we use drag reducing agents to minimize this energy consumption and increase the efficiency. And in terms of reliability, if you see real-time monitoring systems like them, and the anti-corrosion techniques what we have, I think we have setting some benchmarks in the operational reliability. And coming to the growth, I think I was telling we have around close to 2,500 odd kilometers of pipelines, but BPCL is going to add another 1,000 kilometers in the by next 3 years. So for which various projects are going on. Especially there is a Krishnapatnam Hyderabad pipeline which is going on of around 450 kilometers. Irgur Devangunti pipeline. There is a Piyala Jewar ATF pipeline. There is a Mumbai Rasayani pipeline. So so the next with a capacity of almost 18 MMTPA. So from 21.8 we will be going to another 18 MMTPA we will be adding in the next 3 to 5 years. And we are investing close to 8,000 crores in the next 5 years on pipelines.
Okay, thank you. If I can ask quickly, for this expansion that you're talking about, what are the top 1 or 2 things that you require, right, which will help you avoid, let's say, the time and cost overruns that we typically see in a lot of these large linear infrastructure projects? Would that be regulation, or would that be, funding? What exactly?
So, since it's a global perspective, I would like to give a perspective on the regulators in terms of a global perspective. If you look at USA, there are 2 major agencies which do the regulation part. One is the FERC, which does the oil, gas, everything, on the entire energy spectrum. And safety is looked after by the BSCE, which look after the. If you look at Canada, there is only one agency, that is CER, which looks after both the safety and UK, we have two agencies, again, OGA and HSC. In France, there are two agencies. Brazil, there is only one agency, ANP, which looks after the safety and here. But India, we have now close to major, in terms of petroleum, oil industry, if you see, there are five or six agencies. So the numbers itself know how many, initially itself, what are the barricades which are coming up. And these agencies which I talked about across the world, they were constituted way back in 1977, also 1977, 80s. And to our bad luck, whatever we say, but PNGRB was constituted only in 2006. So we were late there, and in terms of regulations, we were very late in coming into that, and they were done in to protect the interests of the consumers, as we all are aware, and entities in specific activities, and to make sure that the sale of petroleum products is happening in a regulated market, whatever. So, but having said that, PNGRB definitely has played a very, very vital role in terms of the development of natural gas and CGD network, because gas was a late entrant in that manner. So they have done a tremendous job in terms of 302 geographical areas, close to 64 numbers of natural gas pipelines are common carriers. I think they've done a fantastic job in that. OASD is the other agency which is there with us. They are, although not a statutory body, but they have earned their own repute in terms of developing the standards and other things. The third agency which comes into us is the PESO, who gives us the final approval or the license to operate any facilities. That is the third thing. But there are a lot of overlapping and duplicating roles between these three entities. I think we have come a long way. I think there is a need to look at these three agencies, which are those overlapping roles, has to go. We have come a long way. I think it has to go. And post PNGRB, and especially for the petroleum and petroleum product lines, since these pipelines were constructed from a strategic perspective of the entire value chain, the oil companies had constructed these pipelines so that we have that refinery evacuation also happens, and we have a strategic influence in the market. But now at this stage, if PNGRB mandates us to make it a common carrier, it affects our profitability and it affects our refinery operations as such. So that fight is going on between the OMCs and the regulatory body. That is bound to happen. It's a healthy thing. I think they promote that equitable market, and no one has the dominant position, abuses the dominant position in the market as the OMC. So their role is also fair. But having developed such capital intensive infrastructures in the past, we cannot let go that facility also. So that is going on in terms of petroleum and petroleum product pipelines, I think. And as Mr. Tripathi had told about the construction part of it, the kind of approvals which we need to go. To give you a perspective, I need, for a KHPL pipeline of 400 kilometer, I need 800 NOCs. And I have to deal with almost 12,000 villages. So it's not going to be easy, and I think we need to look at ways and means how to get over this approval process. I think that there is a low, and the biggest challenge now in the country is getting an ROU. Every farmer is getting knowledgeable. It's not the old times when we pay the 10% of the compensation as per the PMP Act and we can lay a pipeline. I think that times are changing. I think we need to make some energy corridors in a big way. How do we take care of that? How do we make sure of that? And there is a fantastic thing which has come in, which has been done by the Government of India. All of you must have heard about the project Gati Shakti. I think that basically encompasses the entire multimodal infrastructure network across the country. I think that can be used for the approvals and the NOCs. I think that can definitely ease out this 800 old NOCs which I was telling, which we can do. And the other thing, while operating these installations, we are in this market for long and we know how safety is into and self-certification has to come in, a lot of other things which we operate, especially the normal operation activities when we need to that. And that is there all across the globe. Self-certification is an important thing, and that should be given so that some of the smaller approvals can be done away with. I think I've spoken
Thank you.
quite long. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No, that's fine. No, thank you for that great comment, Mr. Gopinath, and a lot of really interesting threads that we can pick up for discussion there, including, for example, the ROU point and how it's becoming increasingly crucial to engage in the right manner with the local populace when you're dealing with these projects. And of course the point about multiple agencies and so many clearances, but then that's how it is. Time is short, otherwise, we could pick them up. I will now move on to Mr. Pankaj Kuchel. He is here from IOC. You have an expertise in materials and contracts, right?
Yeah, currently, yes.
I want to understand from you to begin with, when you look at the oil and gas pipelines, landscape in India, how has it evolved from the point of view of materials, right? The kind of material requirement that is there, how is it met? What are the different, subsets of that entire discussion? Can you take us through that, evolution of the oil and gas pipeline sector from a materials point of view?
Good afternoon to the esteemed panelists here, and I see an august gathering here, including B. Ashok sir. Good afternoon to you, sir. Currently I am heading the procurement wing of pipelines division in Indian Oil, and I heard what Gopinath sir said, and a lot of it is, it has come out. So I'm just taking it forward from that, and I'll come to procurement. Like the cost of projects, the cost of pipeline projects is going haywire. I mean, it's going bad because of increased ROU compensation. Then, if you have got railway crossings or NHAI crossings now, it takes a lot. I mean, if you are crossing, I can cite an example. When we were for this Kandla-Gorakhpur LPG pipeline, we were crossing the railway track in Jhansi division. So the initial demand from the railways was close to 26 crores, which eventually, because of our follow-up and then making them understand technically, got reduced to almost 3 crores. So cost of crossings, that's also very high for pipeline operators. Cost of ROU compensation, crop compensation, which also, we pay multiple crop compensations. So that adds to the cost. And now coming to the procurement part, you see, all companies have their own style and way of procurement, but we in Indian Oil, we do our engineering ourselves, and every pipeline project is divided into multiple composite works packages. Mainly, we go for a mainline laying package. We have a combined station works package, which is for the stations, intermittent stations. Now, one very, troublesome part is the SV locations. Those are the sectionalizing wall locations, which in a LPG pipeline, you have to put every 12 kilometers, and that would need a piece of land close to 5,500 square meters or maybe 8,500 square meters if it is an IP station. So, how to do that? Because, putting up a building with all infra in a remote location, and then in an IP station, you put a, say, 3,500 KL fire water tank also. So all those things which are very difficult to be executed remotely. So the pain area remains as to where, you should include them in which package, whether it's a part of the mainline package or the combined station works package, or you float a separate works package, an RFQ for these SV locations. Because primarily, there are two things. They have a lot of civil job, and then you have that, sprinkler system. which without which you won't get OISD clearance. So, coming to mainline laying, lining up an agency for mainline laying. Now in the country, we have quite a few established players, right? And just to name the top amongst maybe the hydrocarbon engineering wing of L&T, or it could be Kalpataru International, and there are many more. But what we are finding is that we need more players, which is not happening, and probably we are the root cause for it, because in our ecosystem we are not allowing the recognition to new vendors. So that is also one area which we only have to address, but somehow we are stuck with a limited number of vendors who have actually turned into aggregators. And they take the job from us, and then they subcontract it or sub-delegate it to different vendors. And our pain point always remains that that sub-delegation or subcontracting is without, most of the time it's without our knowledge. And it may be in the hands of people who are actually trying their hands in mainline laying, which is a specialized job. And so in mainline laying, that remains a big concern. And of course, we are forced to, increase the HDD quantities. Normally, whatever in earlier days used to happen by way of an open cut crossing, which is quite cheaper vis-a-vis an HDD crossing. Now the HDD quantities are huge in a project, and they are in fact very difficult to estimate. And one of the prime reasons for that is that even the agencies who are granting crossing permissions, like railways or even the irrigation authorities, even for small crossings, they will insist that you go for a trenchless method. Now, sometimes it could be a technical necessity, but many a times it may be orchestrated also, but it adds to our cost. Something which can happen through an open cut, if we go for a trenchless method, it is cost intensive. So that is there, and in addition to that, just to take it forward, even for for all pain points, wherever you find an obstruction, even if you get government land, like we because of a linear project, the government allows us to even have a piece of tribal land or a forest land, but invariably once we pay to the government, we'll find that there are, it's encroached, and you are not having a good possession of that piece of land. So that leaves you with only one option, that you go through a trenchless method through that entire piece of land. So this is becoming quite common, and there may be issues because for any trenchless crossing you should have a heavy wall thickness pipe. So the exact quantities and the right size, right thickness, that should be available with you. And if you're not estimated, then obviously there's a problem. And then one more thing happens is if there are major river crossings or NHAI crossings or railway crossings, what do? You ask the mainline contractor to do them, or you line up a separate HDD contract for them. Now, in both there are issues. Suppose you are lining up a separate vendor for doing major HDD, trenchless crossings. So what happens is that you tell him you give him the profile and the exact changes, so that he can do it. But the first problem which comes in doing so is that he has to approach the place through the ROU. And if ROU is not available, then how does he approach that place? So even if he is able to manage, he carries out the trenchless crossing, there are issues like, the pipeline
Mr.
exactly.
Kuchal, sorry for very sorry for interrupting. It's
No,
a,
no,
it's
no
a
issues.
beautiful discussion, but time is short. We have exactly 9 seconds to wrap it up.
Okay, okay.
But
So,
you know, yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
So I'll just summarize. I mean, because of that, the pipeline many times you change the route of the pipeline. So you might have carried an HDD crossing, but the pipeline will never reach there. And if you leave an isolated HDD crossing, there are miscreants who will, spoil it by, packing it on both sides with ruble or whatever. I'll not take it further. So we are having a problem with, a very limited footprint of good contractors in, in pipeline laying field. So that is an area which is of concern to, I think, all pipeline operators, which of course, I'm just sharing it with the House. The problem has to be addressed by us only. And maybe, we are doing something, but yes, more can be done.
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
So
Thank you.
limited number of good contractors, and the first point, which was an issue you were saying, was about compensation, and how it's adding to the costs. That's one question. We have a lot of very senior people sitting in the audience, and I would love them to, throw some light on very crucial topics like this. But before we end, there is one thing that I want to ask Mr. Gupta. It's about green hydrogen, right? A lot of work is happening in this country on green hydrogen. There's a lot of talk on that. But in fact, I know that there have been a few pilots also for injection of injection of green hydrogen into natural gas pipelines. But are the pipelines green hydrogen ready?
See, there are two issues. One is converting or repurposing, as they say, repurposing of existing gas pipelines for transporting green hydrogen. Green hydrogen, green is a production method. Now, the current research says there is a possibility of transporting up to 20% of hydrogen in through existing gas pipelines. There are other conditions, of course. And I personally believe, yes, it's possible as far as pipe metallurgy is concerned. And then there is another, this thing is transporting hydrogen through city gas distribution pipelines. City gas distribution pipelines are low pressure lines, and they are having two components. One is plastic pipes and other is steel pipes. I think in case of plastic pipes, there is no issue at all. You can transport. For steel pipelines, yes, if we are transporting it as a lower pressure, I think not much of a problem. I think in city gas distribution pipeline, the issue is more on fittings. Because hydrogen being a very small molecule, it leaks out. And if it concentrates, then there could be explosions and all those things. But generally speaking, we can transport, if you say in Hindi, aram se, in city gas distribution, up to 20%. No issue. Beyond 20%, yes, you need to address some of the issues. And as far as trunk, high pressure gas pipelines, you need to do some studies, what kind of pipeline you have, age of the pipeline, whether this pipeline is already having defects. If those defects are identified, because hydrogen is doesn't permit much longer defects. Only smaller defects are permitted, smaller with respect to natural gas. But then laying hydrogen pipeline, I think, is not a good proposition. Pipeline is no longer a socially acceptable industry. People complain if you go to somebody's field and say, I want to lay a pipeline. Nobody likes that. And then there's cost. It adds to cost. Hydrogen pipeline will be very expensive. So converting existing gas pipeline for transporting some percentage of hydrogen is a good idea. And for that, you have to be technically a little stronger. And I think in coming 2-3 years, we will do that.
Okay, thank you. Again, very interesting, and again, multiple things we can discuss here, but time is short. Let me conclude it by thanking all the panelists for sharing all those really wonderful comments and sharing the knowledge with us. Thank you, audience, for being so patient. If there are any questions, maybe one question or two questions we can take, just in case. Yeah, please go ahead. Very good.
My question is with Gupta sir. You said that hydrogen, if you infuse up to 20%, it could not be problem. Uh, but my reading through various research had been slightly different or very different. Uh, Till 2 years back, there had been a number of research, and one of them had been from the DNV, which says even a 1% hydrogen or 99% hydrogen, the impact on the pipeline will be going to same. Hydrogen being very tiny, it has a tendency to break into hydrogen atom, and then hydrogen atom, one electron, if you remove it, say one just proton. So they have a tendency to go into the lattice of the pipes and other materials also, and then they combine with another hydrogen, another proton and this thing, and they made a molecule, and they have a cleavage type of action, which actually result in fatigue and those things. So the result says otherwise that those research papers I'm referring to, they says that even 1% hydrogen or 99% hydrogen has the same effect on the pipeline. Other thing, normally X52, X42, X52 pipelines are this API 5L material are accepted for the hydrogen, and most of the pipeline which we in our country is mostly in X70 kind of material which we are using, which is not acceptable material kind of thing for the hydrogen. So whether that repurposing thing is feasible, apart, even we ignore various like the valves and those things, fittings, gasket, all materials which maybe need to be replaced or repurposed. So whether this 20% repurposing kind of thing is actually feasible?
Interesting question. Cannot be discussed in such a small time. But what report you are referring to is NREL report in US. You know, they have done this study, not DNV. Secondly, there are a lot of reports floating in the market. One is German report, you know, which says hydrogen can be transported to any pipeline through any at any pressure, and they are actually Germany is most advanced in transporting hydrogen. They are actually going by that. Even now, Germany permits 10% in their distribution lines. You know, those reports, you know, I do some research, I come out with something, he does something, he comes out, and should not rely on that. There are a lot of literature available. If you go by the codes, you know, better to go by codes. ASME B31.12, 2023 edition, that permits, that gives values. You know, you do test your pipe sample, and if you find the values are falling within 31.12, yes, it's permitted. So again, you divide the problem into two parts. One is city gas distribution lines, and one is high pressure lines, you know, trunk pipeline. City gas distribution line, I'm more than sure you can transport 20%. You know, because half of the segment is plastic pipes, which has no effect. Hydrogen doesn't have any effect on those. For trunk lines, you know, again, there are two schools of thought. The standard says if it is X52 and less, you can easily transport. It doesn't, in fact, 31.2 permits up to X70. But there are another school of thought which says higher the grade, it's better. Because the steel matrix, you know, you have finer matrix, and possibility of hydrogen going inside those matrix is less. So it's all a matter of research. You know, better to go by the standards. You know, whatever the standard says X70, 31.12, that's what I said, X70. And I am saying of my experience that for city gas lines, which are very low pressure lines, you can easily transport 20% hydrogen. That's it, my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, please go ahead. So very quickly.
Yes. For the awareness of the audience, I would like to just add one more thing in this. The Avantika Gas Limited, which is operating in Indore in some other cities, there we are already adding around 5% of hydrogen in that pipeline and transporting it to the consumer end also, mostly to the domestic one. And periodically we are monitoring the health of the pipeline also. As my fellow panelist has said, there is no impact on the this MDP pipeline which is going to the DPNGs, and moreover the pipeline which is getting connected to their pressure reduction units also, there also we haven't found any deterioration over there. So as my fellow panelist has said, there is a good possibility to use hydrogen in the CGD sector, and if we think that in the coming days the consumption of the CGD is going to be somewhere around 50 million standard cubic meter per day. So by just adding 5% of the hydrogen is going to give many more leverage to the energy sector in terms of the hydrogen, green hydrogen or hydrogen. So that's from my side only.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That brings us to an end of this discussion.